Hello, and welcome to the webinar Plant Biosecurity in the Welsh Ornamental Plant Trade. And this webinar is to give you an overview of that topic. Please have a look at this slide. The webinar is meant for guidance only, and you should look for other information before taking any actions. Plant health. Plant pests and diseases, also known as P&D, lead to both production and sales losses. Now, there's greater movement of plants by horticulture and other plant product industries, both within and between countries. And because of that increased movement of plants, the risk of spreading pests and diseases is high. Also, because of that cross-border movement, there's a greater risk of pest and disease species arriving that will be new to the UK, not found in the UK before. And because we haven't tackled them before, they can cause widespread damage to the ornamental plant sector, food production, and to the environment. So we need to prevent the spread of pests and diseases, and that needs to be tackled by everybody. So in the tackling of disease spread, there's a role for government, for trade associations, for the horticulture industry itself, for distributors and deliverers and logistics companies, for retailers, for customers, and for travellers crossing borders, and for participants in outdoor activities that may spread disease within the environment. The key topics we're going to cover in this webinar are firstly the definitions of biosecurity, then the organisations that are involved in the regulation of biosecurity, then I'm going to talk about some examples of risks, and then we'll move on to the principles of biosecurity, followed by the actions that growers should take to prevent the spread of disease. So, to begin with the definitions of plant biosecurity, and I'm going to give you two definitions here. The first is from the Plant Biosecurity Strategy for Great Britain. And the definition that they give is that biosecurity is a set of precautions that aim to prevent the introduction and spread of harmful organisms. I think it's also useful for you to see another definition. This comes from the Biosecurity Strategy from New Zealand, and it says that biosecurity is the exclusion, eradication, or effective management of risks posed by pests and diseases, those risks being to the economy, environment, and human health. So that brings in the three-point plan of exclusion, eradication, or effective management. Now, some more definitions to do with pests and diseases that are to do with the subject of plant pathology and will help you understand the resource material that is available. So the first definition here is a pest. That's an animal that causes damage to plants. So for examples of that, insects and nematode worms are both pests. A pathogen, now that's an organism that causes disease in plants. So that could be, for example, fungi or water moles, bacteria, viruses, or mycoplasmas. A disease is the collection of symptoms that are caused by the pathogen. So the disease are the symptoms caused by the pathogen, and the disease is often given a common descriptive name. The host species, the hosts are the plant species, or sometimes a range of plant species that the pest can attack or the pathogen can infect. So the pathogen might be specific to one plant, or it might be able to affect a whole range of plant species. I've also added in here the definition of an epidemic. An epidemic is recognized when it occurs, usually in terms of the number of plants infected and the severity. So it often describes a rapid increase in disease levels across a population of plants. So you tell when an epidemic is occurring by that sudden increase in disease levels across, in the case of growers, their crops. Now, biosecurity is an international issue and therefore is governed at an international level. The international plant health standards are set in the framework of the International Plant Protection Convention, known for short as the IPPC. Now, the IPPC is a treaty and it's described as international cooperation in controlling pests of plants and plant products and in preventing their international spread. And that's governed by the Commission on Phytosanitary Measures. The United Nations has the Food and Agricultural Organization, the FAO, and that has the overall goal of food security and of achieving access for people to enough high quality food. And the FAO is the convener of the IPPC. Also internationally, the World Trade Organization, the WTO, that we've heard a lot about recently, regulates world trade. Now, WTO is involved in the import and export of plant material and has what's called the Agreement on the Application of Sanitary and Phytosanitary Measures, which is known for short as the SPS Agreement. In the UK, we have plant health and plant health (forestry) orders and powers associated with those which set out the legislation for the UK and implement European directives within the UK. Changes to the legislation are made through amendments to the orders. Now, plant health is a devolved matter, so these orders are made for Wales as a devolved country. An example of that would be the Plant Health (Wales) Order of 2018. The body responsible for much of this is APHA, the Animal and Plant Health Agency, APHA, and that's an executive agency of DEFRA. Its responsibilities include identifying and controlling endemic, which is ones that are already in this country, and exotic diseases and pests. It's also responsible for the surveillance of new and emerging pests and diseases. It's involved in facilitating international trade in plants, so imports and exports, and the implementation of plant health legislation, which includes phytosanitary certificates and plant passporting. Within the Animal and Plant Health Agency is the Plant Health and Seed Inspectorate. Now that, the PHSI, implements and enforces plant health legislation. And its work is to maintain high plant health status in England and Wales by regulating, excluding, containing, or eradicating quarantine plant pests. It facilitates trade through the provision of plant health certification services. In the UK, the policy for plant biosecurity was laid out in a document in 2014 from DEFRA the Department for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, and that document's called Protecting Plant Health, a Plant Biosecurity Strategy for Great Britain. There are two overarching principles in this document. So overarching principles within the biosecurity strategy. The first of those is taking a risk-based approach to decision making. The other overarching principle is raising awareness involvement amongst all those groups that I mentioned earlier that are involved in biosecurity. The strategy itself uses the approach of what it calls the biosecurity continuum, which is a strategy that's used widely by many governments and many strategies, so it's used internationally. The nature of the biosecurity continuum is that it's the coordination of offshore, border, and onshore activities, coordinated to control the spread of pests and diseases. Now, the continuum itself is laid out in that strategy document, but to summarise that, it covers working with suppliers on pre-border controls, certifying plant health on plant material for export, border controls for inspection of plants and plant material, within the country, surveying and detecting pests and diseases, putting measures in place to control the spread of outbreaks, and developing social, economic, and environmental resilience to the effects of pests and diseases impacts. Within that continuum, there are also feedback loops so that if a pest or a disease is intercepted or an outbreak occurs within the country, those occasions can both be traced back to the source. So that strategy and the biosecurity continuum must be effective, and the effectiveness depends upon international collaboration, effective border controls and inspection, effective methods for the early detection of outbreaks, and the awareness involvement of growers and other businesses and the public. So you can see that for success in biosecurity, there needs to be international collaboration, government cooperation, inspection, detection, and understanding by all those parties that are involved in biosecurity. So that's the strategies, but to begin with, we need to understand where pests and diseases can come from. Well, they can come from infected plant stock, so within country, but particularly importantly from imports. But it's not just plants themselves, it can be from plant products imported, so things like wooden pallets or fruit. Then when the pest or disease is present, they're spread from plant to plant, and that can take place through a variety of mechanisms. So for instance, the wind can spread it. I'll give you an example here of the disease ash dieback, where the spores are spread by wind. It can come from rain or splash dispersal, so for example, potato blight. It might come from soil when it's moved around, or irrigation water. And a common example of that's Pythium, which causes damping off disease, particularly of seedlings. There might also be spread by animals, so aphids, we know, spread viruses between plants. And there are also those activities involved in horticulture, such as pruning and grafting, and other wounds that might occur to the plants, which allow entry by a pathogen. So lots of mechanisms for the spread of pests and diseases from plant to plant, that we need to be aware of in order to implement effective biosecurity measures. Now, I'm going to talk briefly about two examples of widespread plant diseases that cause or are causing serious impacts. The first one is Phytophthora infestans pathogen. Now, the Irish potato famine was caused predominantly by that disease, late blight, caused by Phytophthora infestans, and that occurred between 1845 and 1852 by recurrent infections by the pathogen. There were other problems to do with land tenure involved in making the potato famine worse, but that disease, known as late blight, although at the time it was known as the potato murrain, was extremely important in causing that awful Irish potato famine. Now, more than 1 million people starved during the famine, and many had to emigrate. And there's a picture of late blight, in this case on tomatoes, because it infects tomatoes as well as potatoes, and I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the symptoms of that, where you get necrotic, that is dead lesions on the leaves, and infects the fruit and the tubers. Now, one that we're familiar with today is ash dieback, and there's a picture of an ash, and you can see the dieback leaves towards the base of the branches when you've got infection from the fungus coming in through the leaves and passing down the branches. I put here an example of the spread of the disease. So the spread of ash dieback's been recorded in Wales by looking at 10-kilometre map squares and then recording which of those 10-kilometre areas have infections of the disease, so where the disease has been recorded. So you can see in Wales in 2012 there was no recorded infection, but then in 2013 the first records were found within those map squares, and then you can see the spread from 2013, 14 up to 2019, where 235 of the map squares have got recorded disease, and that actually accounts for 88.7% of the country, which is most of the country that has ash trees. So a fast increase over that 7-year period for the disease. And of course, ash is a very important tree within woodlands within Wales, so enormous consequences from that disease being spread. Just as background, I wanted to describe how the pattern of disease spread occurs. So the speed at which it occurs depends on 3 factors. First, the infection rate. Now, that's a characteristic of the individual pathogen. So different pathogens have different infection rates. But basically, it's how many other plants are infected from one individual plant. So if 2 plants are infected from one individual plant, that is a lower infection rate than if 5 plants are infected from each individual source plant. So that's firstly the infection rate. Secondly, there's the latent period, and that's the time between the infection of the plant and when the infection can spread from it. So usually it's the invasion, say, of a fungus, and the time to which that fungus then produces spores that can go on and infect another plant. And thirdly, it relies on how long the plant remains infectious. So a plant that's killed quickly often can't spread the disease much further, but a plant that has infective spores or produces more larvae of the pests over a longer period will increase the infection. So a typical spread of a disease, either in a year sweeping through the crops or of a new disease coming into the country, follows an S shape. So you can see there in blue on the slide that S shape over time. And that S shape is the percentage of plants infected over time. So it begins fairly flatly. So the percentage of plants is fairly low to begin with. So slow infection until enough plants are infected where there are lots of, in the case of fungi, spores in the air. So lots and lots more plants will be infected. So then we get a steep rise in the increase. That's the rapid spread phase. And then the curve flattens out. And that's a slowdown because there aren't many new infections because most of the plants are already infected. Now, there are things that we can do to slow or change that shape, such as using chemical control or having resistant varieties. However, what we want to do in biosecurity is stop that epidemic, that S-shaped curve occurring and stopping too many plants being infected. So we want to stop the epidemic before it reaches that stage of the curve where the increase in numbers of plants infected becomes very fast. And we can do that by stopping any infection in the first place. And you remember that early definition of biosecurity. So stopping infection in the first place, that's exclusion of the disease or the pest from the country. And that's what we try and do with those exotic pests and diseases that aren't present in the country so far. Or if we do get infections, removing infected plants before they can infect others. And that's the second phase of that definition, eradication. So we can quarantine or we can eradicate those infected plants if we detect them fast enough and have exclusion zones, and then use other control measures. So it's quite important to understand how the disease spreads and how the epidemic takes place. So looking at that S-shaped curve and how we can alter the spread of the epidemic. It's very important to be able to implement biosecurity measures, and we take this very seriously, as a lot of other countries do as well. And I've just put one example here of a foot washing station on a footpath in a New Zealand forest. Wonderful trees in New Zealand called cowries, but they do suffer from a dieback disease. So there's enormous effort goes into trying to control the spread of cowrie dieback disease. This is an example where anybody passing down this footpath has to go into a foot wash before they can carry on, because the spores of the pathogen are often spread on shoes and on gravel and by bicycles. So you can see there a foot wash station and the measures that go into controlling the disease. Now, we are provided with a lot of information in the UK, particularly from government, and a useful central information point on biosecurity strategy is the UK Plant Health Information Portal. And you can access that from the Plant Health Risk Register page or from the web address, which I've given at the bottom there, the planthealthportal.devra.gov.uk. And this portal provides information about plant pests and diseases, including risk assessments for each of the pests or diseases that have been done, links to other sites of interest and information on plant health controls, and services provided by the government. You can also access the UK Plant Health Risk Register, which is a very important tool in our biosecurity measures. Now, this was established and it's maintained by DEFRA. And it's part of that overarching principle that I described earlier about risk-based approaches. It's described as a tool for government, industry and stakeholders to prioritise action against pests and diseases which threaten our crops, our trees, gardens and our countryside. Now, I've given an example here of a page in the Plant Health Risk Register just to explain its opening and some of the information that you get access to. And the page I've chosen here is for the bacterial pathogen Xylella fastidiosa, which is a very dangerous pathogen with a very high host range, large host range, that we find it's very important to try and keep out of the country. So it's extremely important to raise your awareness of Xylella fastidiosa. And you can see lots of reds on there to show that it is a very great risk to our horticulture, food and ornamental production. You can see there that it has unmitigated risks. These are the consequences if we don't have control measures, and mitigated risks. Now, these are very high because it will be very difficult to control this pathogen, and it will have serious social and business impacts. You can see here we've got scores for the likelihood of it coming in, its impact, and we've got an overall UK relative risk rating. And it's worth going to the UK Plant Health Risk Register and familiarising yourself with the way that this risk register works. So, as you saw from that slide, each pest on the register is given a risk rating. Now, that rating is made up of the likelihood of the risk arising, the impact on the host plants, and the value of the host plants in the UK. Now, if we multiply the likelihood with the impact, that gives us an indication of the threat to the sector. So you would have seen that on the previous page, and again, I'd recommend you go to the risk register and familiarise yourself with that. We also have, as I pointed out, the overall UK risk rating, and that's calculated from likelihood multiplied by the impact multiplied by the value. So that plant health risk register is a very useful tool, and it will also give you pest risk analyses as well, and give you lots of information on host ranges and control, and also the importance of biosecurity. So I've gone over definitions of biosecurity, the governance of biosecurity, and how diseases spread. You as growers are, of course, crucial in the implementation of biosecurity. So I'm going to go through now some of the actions that you should take. This isn't an exhaustive list, and you should make sure that you consult other sources, trade associations, also look at government advice, including that from AFA, and make use of the PHSI inspectors, the regional inspectors that you can consult, and also go to the plant health helplines as well for additional information. But here are some suggestions for actions that growers should take. So I've divided into various sections of your activities. Firstly, planning. So when you're planning contracts for buying plants or actually placing orders, make sure that biosecurity is part of your quality standard and of your audit processes. Ensure that you're importing plants from disease-free areas. So that is areas where outbreaks of disease on your host species are not occurring. And because this is planning, consider how long you might need to quarantine or how long you might need to inspect plants before they can be sold on or planted by your customers. You need to make sure you're compliant with the legislation. So comply with the UK national requirements to notify the Animal and Plant Health Agency about species of plants, for example, under the EU Plant and Tree Notification Scheme. Make sure you're using phytosanitary certificates within the EU plant passports. Ensure that those certificates or plant passports arrive with the plants, the trade units, and they are correct. And also, in compliance, make sure you keep records of the plant passports or the certificates so you can aid traceback if it becomes necessary and supply plant passports onto customers as are required by the regulations. And remember that imported plants must be inspected at border inspection controls. So that's planning and compliance, and now sourcing. So source from suppliers who are known for their good procedures and their biosecurity arrangements. And you might be aware of that from visiting them. Check that the plants are all coming directly and solely from that chosen supplier, so you know about those biosecurity arrangements. And make sure you've considered protected zones and quarantine pests when you're sourcing, and that you've thought about the risks for the plant species you're planning to import. If they're high-risk species, you may well be better finding alternatives to those species. Having sourced the plants, you then have the arrival of the plants. Make sure you understand the legislation for notifiable quarantine pests and non-notifiable pests and diseases. If you find a listed pest or disease or it's intercepted, it must be reported to the Animal and Plant Health Agency. Isolate or quarantine new batches of plants and monitor them for signs of disease. And we've already talked about Xylella fastidiosa, which is so important that we must exclude from this country. So be aware of which plants are hosts, because you know that this is a high-risk organism. Now, whilst you may know these things, it's important that your staff are aware as well. So incorporate staff training and staff awareness in your programs and in your team briefings. So train staff to recognize pests and diseases, make plant disease risk and identification part of your regular staff briefing, and ensure staff understand the functioning of plant passports or phytosanitary certificates. Train your staff to understand what biosecurity is about and what it's for, and in methods of plant hygiene. And that'll include the disposal of plants and the recording of treatments, chemical treatments, and so on. And monitor that those plant hygiene methods and the recording have been done to ensure that they're being carried out to a high standard. And make sure the staff know who to inform and what to do if they do find a pest or a disease. Now, to encourage high plant health quality standards, there is the Plant Health Assurance Scheme being introduced, and details of this can be found at Plant Healthy. So the web address is planthealthy.org.uk. Now, the Plant Health Assurance Scheme is described by saying this plant health management standard is intended to assist businesses and organisations in the development of a consistent plant health management system and their responsibilities within the plant supply chain. Now, usefully, on that website, you can go through a self-assessment. So the Plant Healthy Self-Assessment, which scrutinises your business's biosecurity. And if you are keen to progress this, it'll also help you towards joining the Plant Health Assurance Scheme, which is supported by both DEFRA and the Animal and Plant Health Agency. So a very useful site to have a look at. This Plant Health Assurance Scheme has recently been put in place, and so the website is growing in its resources. Well worth a look at that website. Now, there are a variety of sources of information on biosecurity, and I've put some examples here. Again, well worth a look at this to make sure that you're being compliant. So there's government guidance on .gov.uk site, and there's guidance on the prevention of the introduction and spread of tree pests and diseases, for example. There's information on plant health controls. I've also mentioned already the UK Plant Health Portal, which has information and fact sheets. I've given you the web address there for the Plant Risk Register that I described. And the Animal and Plant Health Agency has a topical issues page, and the web address is there for you to do regular checks on the information coming out of there. You may also be a member of a trade association, which will provide you with very valuable information. The Plant Healthy website has very recently introduced a set of training modules to help you progress towards that assurance scheme standard. And some of those training modules will give you information additional to that which I've described in this webinar. There are a number of training modules, but I've picked out 3 there of particular relevance to the topic of biosecurity. So there's one on regulations and controls. There's another on pathways of introduction and spread. And training module 4 there, and I've given you the website address, is on good biosecurity practice. So a useful resource for building up your knowledge or the knowledge of your staff. So I hope that's given you an overview to plant biosecurity, some of the principles, the definitions, how it's governed in the UK, and some of the actions that you can take. Thank you very much for listening.